there's one thing, getting a part in a show or a movie, reading for an audition.
Right.
It's another thing knowing that this giant of a showrunner, producer, writer, TV creator wrote a piece knowing that I was going to be the person who played it.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you're listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. He's one of the finest creative artists in the industry today. You've seen him on projects such as Perry Mason, The Blacklist, and as Skinny Pete on the hit Emmy winning drama Breaking Bad, a character that stole the show in every scene he was in. On today's show, the very talented Charles Baker. How are you, Charles?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming to hang out on the show today, brother. I really appreciate that. How have you been over these last 18 months, Charles? We're living in such a crazy world, especially in the creative arts. What did the 2 years look like for you?
It has been a roller coaster. It's been, it's one actor once described it, and I wish I could tell you which actor it was, but they once described it, just this business in general, but like this last, I almost lost count, like almost 2 years has been like being on a pendulum swinging between soft, cushy velvet and razor sharp spikes.
Yeah.
It's just like it's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in hindsight. I got pretty low for this whole thing, because more than anything, I kind of discovered how very, very non-essential I am as an actor, when it comes to, just in general life. I work for me stopped completely, and as much as I know that I shouldn't, in my brain I know you don't take it personally. It's a business. Don't take it personally. But I tend to tie a lot of my self-esteem into the affirmation I get from working. And so I find myself, when I don't have a project coming, or am not focused on trying to get a project, that I really don't have much sense of purpose. And that I kind of got lost there for a while and forgot, how much I really love what I do. And then kind of helped rekindle that same passion, and helped me start exploring what it was that that really ignites the passion in me about being an actor. And I was able to rediscover that, and that kind of helped change my, swing the pendulum back to the soft, fluffy pillows side, and hopefully stalls it for a few minutes, or for a few months, or hopefully for a long time, because I'm feeling a lot more secure in what I do now, oddly enough. So it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that's deep, Charles. That really is, especially some of the things you were mentioning there about what is considered essential and what's considered non-essential, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this medium specifically, right? We think about TV shows, movies, entertainment. One can make the argument, of course, you can say the necessities of life are, your food, health, and of course that for sure. But a lot of the things that artists like yourself provide are very essential to the mental health being of a lot of people. It really is. And I'm so happy to hear that you're in a better spot now. And hopefully that continues, because I know how difficult this time's been for a lot of people in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love most about the arts is that it is such a collaborative effort. Film, especially film and television,
Mm-hmm.
it's a collaborative art. You have costumers, wardrobe, lighting designers, camera people. Everybody is collectively creating a new art piece
Right.
with their each individual talents. And that's like my jam right there, is working with other people. And when I'm left on my own, it's like, wow, who am I really? What purpose do I have?
Mm-hmm.
I create characters, but I'm not a writer. And I've worked with some really respectable writers, and knowing that, the difference between, well, Uta Hagen put it best, having a respect for the craft, thinking, hey, I can be a writer because I've watched a lot of TV and movies, is a
Right.
lot different than I've studied writing. I went to college. I have a degree in developing a
Yeah, yeah.
story. And I have worked with people. I've been assistants. I've gone through the internships, and I've gone through the pain and learned
Yeah.
from the
Paid your
greats,
dues. Yeah.
and I
All that.
paid my dues, and
Mm-hmm.
I know every nuance of a scene that needs to be done, and I can tell you the formula for any particular show, and I could write that. That's a whole different level, and I have too much respect for that, especially writers,
Mm-hmm.
to think, oh, I'll just write my own stuff. um, I'm not. I am good at taking what they write and then using what I know and try and infuse myself into one of their characters that they've but without the writers, and I often say, without the writers, without the camera people, without the lighting designers, without the director, without everybody else, makeup, I'm just a crazy guy standing naked in the dark, babbling nonsense to myself. Um, so
Well said, man. Well said, Charles.
it's
Well,
so
yeah. Well, here's hoping to, hopefully, again, with things kind of slowly getting crazy again, that maybe potentially 2023, 2022 actually could be a better year in this medium for everyone, because I
yeah,
think we need that right now, man. We really do.
I have a feeling it is. I have a feeling that everything. I mean, the one thing human beings have against all of the dark forces of nature that we're up against is hope. It's the one thing we have, and no matter, and that's kind of the thought that kept me going through all of this last few dark years,
Yeah.
has been, it does get better. It can get better. I don't know what is going to happen next, but curiosity, um, for what could happen, that hope of what it could be, that's what keeps you going. And so, yeah, and stick it through, and you never know, life will surprise you if you let it.
Well said there. Well said, Charles. I am
I'm
so
just babbling on this morning.
no,
Sorry.
no, I love it. It's some words of wisdom from someone who's been in this industry through the highs and the lows. You've put your time in, you've seen all the different peaks of the rise of television in terms of Breaking Bad, a show like that, where the golden age of TV started. And we'll dive into a little bit of that later on. But before all that, I'm really fascinated by your story. You're having such a great career in this medium, Charles, whether it's TV shows, theater, movies, you've done a plethora of voice acting as well. Where does this all begin for you? What are some of your early influences that made you want to be in the creative arts?
Um, well, I'd probably need like a group of therapists to sit with us, like kind of explain all of that. I think the short answer really is I was raised in a time when it was okay to just lock a kid in their house by themselves with a TV. Um, and we were called latchkey kids. Uh, I I woke up in the morning. I had, divorced parents. I lived with my mother most of my life. My dad was in the military and he was traveling all over the world. Um, and so a lot of my time was spent as an only child with my mom. Waking up in the morning, she was already at work, feed
Mhm.
myself breakfast, go to school, come home from school, let myself in, make myself a snack, do my homework, sometimes usually make myself dinner, or whatever she had prepared for dinner, had and left in the fridge for me, pop it in the microwave, and go to bed without throughout a week, maybe just hearing my mom come in the door when she got home in the middle of the night from her job. I was raised by television. I that was my clock. I wake up in the morning, ate some breakfast, and watched the cartoons or whatever sitcoms were playing in the
Mhm.
morning. And after this show, I knew I had to leave for school, and that was like how I knew what was going on for the day. Oh, the Jeffersons are on. I need to pop my dinner in the microwave. Gilligan's Island's on. It must be time for me to have a snack. And and so yeah, living in my imagination just kind of became my thing. And then I also, throughout my upbringing, learned that entertaining people was, like I said, the only way I got validation. As far as I know, um, I sang in choirs in school, and I did musicals and the plays, and that seemed like the only validation that I could get. It wasn't from like my parents or anything, but it was from other
Right.
people. And I had a variety of experiences. I was a gymnast. I did a lot of athletics. My father was really into athletics. My mom was really into arts. And they didn't like each other, and so they wanted to make sure I did whatever the other one didn't like. And so I did it all. Um, and I that kind of gave me a better foundation, really, for being a creative
Yeah.
in this business, and especially being an actor, because you never know what they're gonna have you do. A lot of times when I audition, it'll just give me a scene that has, hey, you say this, you say this, you say this, and I'm like, okay, I do that, and then I get the part, go to the set, and they go, well, after you do this, then you run down the hallway for 60
Yeah.
yards and then chase and then beat up three guys who look bigger than you. And like, for a lot of it, we have stunt guys, but as much as you can do without hurting yourself, and
Mhm.
before it becomes dangerous, do as much as you can. And like, okay. And you get surprised by that. And so having experience just helps. And um, so it's just a culmination. We are products of our environment, and my environment was watching people on TV, and it's now most of the people I watch now I get to work with. It's a dream come true. And being influenced by those stories, being influenced by, you know, sometimes even just that formula. You know, the Disney formula gets me every
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just I'm okay.
Watching a Pixar movie, Toy Story,
Yeah,
you know the tears are
yeah,
coming.
yeah. I've been fully programmed, you know, and I was fully programmed by it, and so it's the only thing I really knew. And sometimes I think maybe I did it just to make my dad angry. So, you know, but it's something I knew I wanted to do my entire life, something I had been told I could never really do and take seriously and be taken seriously. And it would just, you know, that just something you can do as a hobby, you know, community theater, but don't interrupt your job washing dishes at the local diner, you know. And then I finally said, you know what, I'd rather die trying to survive as an artist than live avoiding it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to realize that and to allow myself the chance. And once I did, I haven't looked back. And so it's been cool.
Yeah. You know, it's a really fascinating and interesting answer you said there, Charles, because that's a common thread I hear in a lot of different answers that when I speak to creative artists is, and it's one thing that I feel that maybe your conventional human being doesn't understand, who doesn't have a mind for the arts or a passion for the arts, is there's something about this industry, this medium, where you can get 100 no's, but that one yes, it just completely just changes everything, your mental psyche, your happiness, your desire to keep moving forward. And I completely understand how some people will never understand that. And it's sad because you need to almost be wired in a specific way, right? To be in this medium where you just have to keep going and going when everyone says stop.
I often tell my students, first I tell them, I'm not saying this to discourage you. If you want to be an artist, when I say this, I'm not saying you should quit. What I am saying is if you can imagine yourself doing anything else for a living and being happy, do that. Because if you're really willing to put up with this, what you have to put up with in between those just glimmers of validation and
Yeah.
happiness that you do get when you are working, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of weight behind that decision. And if you can live and go, yeah, no, I'm fine doing something else and have a happy career and then, you know, go do community theater and fill in that gap as a
Mm-hmm.
hobby. But if you want to go for it as a career, make sure it's you know, the only thing that you can imagine yourself doing. And then just do it until one day you go, oh wow, look, I'm doing it.
Charles, I'm so glad that you decided to keep on with your dream and that you decided to keep going, because you're responsible for one of my all-time favorite characters in one of my all-time favorite shows. So let's deep dive into all things Breaking Bad.
Ooh.
Skinny Pete, and in Breaking Bad and more recently in El Camino, is just that character that is just so good. It's just the way it's written, the way it's designed. And a lot of that the credit goes to you, Charles. It really does, because at its base, you can see him as this thug drug dealer who's just conventionally a bad guy. But there's so many different layers to this character, and there is a humanity to him. At its core, of course, you have Vince Gilligan, the writing staff, Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, but you have this amazing larger world of Breaking Bad characters that build up this universe. Skinny Pete is one of the most adored characters in the entire franchise. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get
Right.
involved with the show? Was it the conventional casting process?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, in the way that it can be. there they were casting in New Mexico, but they were trying to find a little. New Mexico hadn't developed its reputation for being a very big film town at the time yet. It was starting, but they didn't have a lot of actors that were readily available for that kind of role, and so their choices were find somebody from Los Angeles, which means that costs more money, or find someone close by. And so luckily I had a relationship with a New Mexico casting director who had formerly been in Texas. She knew what I was capable of doing. I hadn't done a lot of work, but she had luckily booked me in a project. And so when Breaking Bad was auditioning for day players, she asked another casting director who was in Dallas to tape some actors. And so I was lucky enough to get to audition for that role. Now, this is a long story. I hate to take up all your time telling these great stories, but
let's hear it. That's what we're here for.
I was taking auditioning workshops from this casting director in Dallas, and the material she was using was Breaking Bad. It was the pilot script for Breaking Bad, and then she had the script because she was going to start casting it for another network, and then that network decided, never mind, that's too dark, we aren't going to go with this show. And so she didn't think it was going to be picked up. She thought it was just a script that she could use for actors in a just audition workshop. And so I took the class it was once a week. I took it for about a month, and practiced auditions for this casting director with almost every role, every major role in the show. And then one day I come into this casting workshop, and the casting director says, "You aren't going to believe this. That show actually got picked up by AMC, and they're going to start casting it." And I said, I really want to be in it. And she goes, and I was 35-ish at the time. She said, "Well, what do you like? They've already cast the main roles. What are you gonna? You can't. You're too old." All we knew was a high school teacher who cooked drugs. That's the only thing we knew about the show, really. She's like, "You're too old to play a high school student, but you don't look like you could play a teacher. What do you think you're going to do in that?" I said, "I don't know. They got to have like people to sell the drugs to." And I was just kind of like, I don't know. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, she called and said, "Hey, we have an audition for, it's what they call a day player role for Breaking Bad. And it's a skinny, they had actually three: skinny stoner, tattooed stoner, and chubby stoner. And that was the three roles they were auditioning. And I went in, and I think I read for skinny stoner, but I wore a what they call it
was those neck things, those like undershirt things. Yeah, what is it called? Why are we blanking here? Yeah,
wife beater is
wife beater. There you go.
Derogatory term. But I was wearing one of those, and so you could see that I had tattoos. And that was my first round of auditions. And then they called me back a few days later and said, "Hey, we'd like you to audition again for the second round of auditions, but we changed the script." And I got the new script, and it suddenly said skinny tattooed stoner and then chubby stoner. And there was only two stoners now instead of three of us. It was just a skinny tattooed stoner and a chubby stoner. And I thought, well, I'm both skinny and tattooed, so I got that. So I went in and I did the same, audition as I did before in the same outfit, and luckily I got the part. And I went and I did my few lines for my first episode. And Rodney Rush, who played Combo, managed. He actually was from New Mexico and auditioned in New Mexico, and
Okay, nice.
managed to book the role. And from what I understand, that was his first actual acting experience. And he's a great dude. And he was a lot of Skinny Pete's inspiration, because he was an Albuquerque local. And so when we weren't working, I would just talk to him, and I kind of learned, some of the talk, some of the slang, some of the dialect. New Mexico has its own dialect, and he helped remind me of that. I had lived in New Mexico as a child, but it had been a few years, and so he reminded me of the New Mexico lilt. And so yeah, then I did the first I got the first part, and they said, thanks, we're all done with you. And that's as far as I knew. They were done with me, and so well, now back to looking for a job, and then a few days later, I would get a call saying, hey, we'd like you to come back. And I went, oh, okay. And so I came back, and then it was that same way, like, okay, thanks, we're done. And then a few days later, a few weeks later, sometimes it would be that, it wouldn't be till the next season. It'd be like 6 months to a year later.
Right.
Hey, yeah, are you available to do an episode?
One of the best parts about the show is the relationship between Skinny, Jesse, and Badger. When the three of you are on screen, it's absolute magic. Can you talk about the relationship that you have with Aaron Paul and Matt Jones that just makes this so natural?
I couldn't tell you. They're both just great guys. I mean, they're really easy to get along with. I mean, Aaron Paul he should be a national treasure. I mean, he's kind, he's humble, he's loving, he's caring. He's like, everything you want in a co-worker. Just, put it in professional terms. He's somebody you want to work with because he's not a jerk. And the same with Matt Jones. Matt is just funny. He's easy to get along with. And I was really new to working on camera, and I really wasn't expecting to have to play the same character. Admittedly, when I came in as Skinny Stoner, I created the character, and it was a little overdone. And the first director that I worked with on the show said, hey, let's pull that back. And he'd say, hey, let's do this. And we kind of crafted Skinny Pete in the first episode for, just a one-off thing. And I didn't, usually you have time to work on a character and you develop all his traits and all his stuff. Well, we made it up on the fly, and then I was done. I was like, oh, I'm back, bye. But then they said, come back. And I was like, how did this guy talk? How did this guy,
Yeah, you have to rediscover him again almost, right?
Yeah, I had to, oh my God, I have to learn him again. And one of my early lines was, my pops is a contractor. My pops is a contractor. He can hook you up. And I remembered that line. I remembered the cadence of that line. I remembered, and so I built on that. And so, but I was really scared. Let me get back to your point. I was really kind of scared of what was going on, because I was really new to working on camera. I had to rediscover this character. And Aaron and Matt Jones, they're both Hollywood actors. I'm just this guy from Fort Worth, Texas, who just happened to fit a look that they needed, and who they happened to decide, let's bring him back. And so I looked to them and I'm almost 10 years older than both of them. by the way. But I was looking up to them at, for it's kind of teach me what to do, show me how how to do
Like that
this.
guidance,
And
right? Yeah, because it's
right,
just a lot of the reps that you're just getting in now, they may have already been having for the last
right,
3-4 years, right?
right.
Mhm.
And so I was I was kind of like the kid in that group, and they were the grown-ups, and I just followed along like a little happy puppy, and just watched and listened. Um, and the the genuine love that Skinny Pete has for Jesse is it's real. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I adore that guy, and and especially the connection I had with my character, and you couldn't help but just like really want to be his friend,
Yeah.
and so we just let that go. And Badger and I was kind of we were like,
Like siblings almost in a way, just always,
right,
back and forth. The
yeah,
love's there, but you guys have that back and forth banter.
yeah. And he was kind of like the brother I always wanted. I had two brothers, but they way older than me and had already taken off by the time I was able to have any kind of meaningful kind of conversations. And so yeah, Matt Jones was like, when I was on set, he and I were like, um I was like his little brother, like, hey, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? How do we do this? And he kind of guided me through, and gave me pointers, and just helped me feel okay about my position there. And didn't I I'll be honest, I like a lot of actors have a lot of imposter syndrome, kind of like, why did they hire me feelings.
Yeah.
And he was the one who was like, well, because you're doing great, because um because you're keeping up and you're doing fine, so don't just keep going. So there was no like, it's neat when you don't have to act like you like somebody on camera, you know. And that was the beautiful part of it.
Well, I'm gonna transition to the finale of the series
Yes,
because that's an episode you're part of. When you
yeah,
have these paradigm changing shows in entertainment, you can never truly please everyone or satisfy the masses. Now, me personally, I like the ending because there's only a few ways you can really go in the arc of Walter White. And I think this one potentially is the best way that it sounds like Vince Gilligan and the writers chose. And I'm on all board with that. But as someone who's part of the show and as someone who's a fan of the show, how did you personally feel about it?
I loved it. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be until I saw it with the rest of the world. um and I didn't want to know what it was going to be. I didn't want spoilers. And but I had absolute faith in Vince Gilligan, because one, he's so brilliant. He knew from the start he was going to finish it before it got crazy, before they
Right.
jumped the shark. He knew from the start that I have an idea how I want to finish this, or at least when I want to finish this, because in order to, from what I understand, in order to make it really plausible that this guy was terminally ill, we have to actually end the story. um,
Yeah.
so I had absolute faith in Vince and that writing team, that brilliant writing team's ability to put it together. And I was just ready to be there and along for the ride. I was completely amazed that they actually let me um, come along for that ride. And just, yeah, it's one of the best times of my life.
Well, hey, like the show ends. And it's funny, we go back to that thread we're talking about, you just coming back and back, and they just want more and more of Charles Baker. 5 years later, Vince Gilligan decides to revisit the Jesse Pinkman story. What was your reaction to get on the call that Skinny is going to come back for El Camino, a Breaking Bad story?
There was a lot of jumping up and down,
Yeah.
dancing. I think I probably like got a little like wobbly and almost fainted. And I was blown away. There's there's one thing, getting a part in a show or a movie, reading for an audition.
Right.
It's another thing knowing that this giant of a showrunner, producer, writer, TV creator wrote a piece knowing that I was going to be the person who played it. Like, he already knew that I was going to be Skinny Pete, and then he still wrote all that incredible stuff for me to do. Which that's like the biggest compliment a writer, I think, could give an actor, is to like choose to write a story that has knowing that you're going to be the one playing this, and I'm going to give you something that the audience is going to love. And that was, I can't get over how like just amazing that was for me. And I don't think I could express it in words. I don't know how to express that in words.
Well, hey, like circling back to something you just said a little while ago, is there's this great scene in which Jesse asks Skinny in El Camino, Skinny, why are you doing all this? And the line you say is, because you're my hero. And I think that's such a beautiful send-off for Pete. It further humanizes him, that he aspires to have the great qualities and the goodness of Jesse. Do you feel that was a fitting send-off for Pete?
I think it was the absolute best send-off for Skinny Pete. He's like, that was his, the higher purpose. That was the hope for the future that he had. It's like, hey, you're someone to look up to. You got out of the absolute worst any human being I know. I personally know. You've gotten out of the absolute worst. You've seen the lowest of the low, and here you are standing tall, trying to walk out of this with with some kind of humanity. Absolutely, that was the best send off for Skinny Pete.
Of course.
And taking, he going to jail, or potentially going to jail for not revealing Jesse's location at the end. Hey, I would have taken Skinny Pete would have taken a bullet for him. He would have jumped on a grenade for him at that point. And that's kind of metaphorically what he did. Just jumped on a grenade for him. So yeah, I loved it. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more. I lovingly called that whole segment the Ballad of Skinny Pete. That just that sweet, beautiful whole section of this coming to Skinny Pete's safe haven. And I couldn't be more proud of what I was asked to do, and what I hopefully was able to accomplish with that.
No, for sure. Now, one thing that's, if I agree with you on that, I really do, because it puts that bow on the character of Skinny Pete, and it gives the audience a farewell as well, because we didn't really get that in the original series finale for both Skinny Pete and Badger. We want to think that Skinny Pete's out there, and he's out there trying to get his life in order and out there doing the good thing. So I'm happy that you found as much joy in shooting that scene and in that closure that the rest of the audience really felt for a character like Skinny Pete.
Yeah, I am too. There's nothing like it. I mean, there's nothing like getting an opportunity, especially on a show that was as high caliber as that was.
Yeah.
To be able to just have that opportunity. It's and I say, it's just like, how is it going to get better than that? And it did. It's amazing how, and I'm not really allowed to talk about what I'm doing right now, but boo, if I could.
Don't worry, we'll get you back on the show to discuss that when it's the right time. All right.
You got it. You're gonna be like, what? Yeah. So it's amazing how just things get better, and just give Give it a chance.
Well, hey, one thing that's changed since Breaking Bad originally came out is the way people consume media. And with the world of streaming, everything's just at it's the palm of your hands. You've got a remote control, you've got a Netflix subscription, Amazon Video, whatever. People continue to rediscover and discover Breaking Bad for the first time. How often do you get people coming up to you or like reaching out to you via social media that they just watched Breaking Bad for the very first time?
Not it personally. I managed to stay kind of incognito without that being
Yeah, yeah.
on social media. Yeah, it's really neat that it still goes, that it keeps going. And it honestly, it caught me off guard when I started meeting people who were like, oh, you were on Breaking Bad. My parents used to watch that show all the time. Like, you're an adult now. So it's amazing because I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I wouldn't let her watch it when when it was coming. She was literally born the same year that we started shooting.
Oh, wow.
And so she grew up her first 6 years of me playing Skinny Pete. And I remember for a while she thought it was kind of funny that people used to call me Skinny Pete and would you're Skinny Pete, and just giggle, but she had no idea what it was from. It wasn't until later that she got to see just select scenes. But now she's 14 and she's like, I have friends who watch it. I'm thinking of watching it. Like, okay, I guess you're I mean, you're not quite, but she's very smart for her age. And but yes, media has changed and new generations are finding it. And it's neat that, for me, it's neat that younger generations like hers are still watching traditional formats of entertainment. And it's not all YouTube and TikTok videos. So just that they can actually stay involved in storylines has been that was kind of getting me worried there for a minute, to be honest. Is traditional
the attention
entertainment
span,
gone?
right? Yeah, the attention span of people is so low now, especially when you've got one of these smartphones with you 24/7, right? It's getting that attention to stay there and go through a series of 45-minute episodes rather than watching a 2-minute TikTok video. It takes a lot for someone to sit down, and I think that's some of the genius behind Breaking Bad is that it hooks you onto that story. So let's transition back to Charles Baker. So what do you enjoy watching the most? What are you currently watching? What would I find on your Netflix account?
Oh, well, it's mostly stuff that me and my wife watch together, and it's amazing how my brain goes blank when people ask me questions like that. I'm usually behind on stuff.
Okay.
So I have this weird, I refuse to give in to the zeitgeist. Like when everyone's like, oh, this is the most amazing show, you have to watch it. That's when I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait.
The irony in that answer there, Charles, I swear. You're talking about one of the most important TV shows and the most famous TV shows, and you're going to not watch it. I find it so ironic.
It is weird. It is weird. But luckily, Breaking Bad when it started, wasn't the biggest TV show. It almost didn't make it. And I was just, I was excited to just see it because I knew it was something special, but the audience didn't realize it until it hit Netflix. In the third season, and then once it started
picking up, then
it just boom. Where were we?
You're talking about things
I love pretty much anything sci-fi. I love, of course, all the Marvel stuff. I love they have the new Boba Fett coming out. Obi-Wan Kenobi and
Star Wars universe, right?
Star Wars, man. I've been a Star Wars fan since 1977. I had all the action figures. It's like there was a time when I was a kid when well, when I was a teenager, when I realized they were going to be making the
Yeah, the
prequel 1,
prequels.
2, and 3, I was like, I may be old enough. I could play Luke Skywalker's father. I could be Anakin Skywalker right before he turns into Vader. And again, being influenced by TV and film my whole life, it's like, oh, wouldn't that be cool? And just so Star Wars almost it's somewhat influenced me to do what I do. Not necessarily play drug addicts, but at least to be an actor, pursue a career in acting. And a lot of the actors in Star Wars, Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, so I trained as a mime for a really long time because of actors like him, Bob Hoskins, who did Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
He's Mario as well, I think, right? Yeah.
Johnny Depp, for his mime skills. And it was actually Keira Knightley who said it in an interview, learn your mime skills. If you want to work in a CGI environment fighting
dragons and like monsters and whatnot,
octopus or monsters or whatever,
yeah,
then you need to know how to mime. So I studied mime specifically because of actors like that. And Anthony Daniels, what a lot of people don't get, he showed emotion playing C-3PO. He was able to show emotion. He was able to show fear. He was able to show happiness. But you never once saw his face. He did it with body language. That's mine, And so, yes, I'm a Star Wars geek. All of that stuff. And I love that that's all coming on out and
Disney
going
Plus and all that.
Yeah. I'm not a judgmental TV. I'm not a critic. I'm just, if you put something fantasy in front of me, I'll just jump in with the fantasy. And I don't, start going, oh, well, that couldn't happen because this happened. This is all somebody else's story. So I'm totally in with that kind of stuff. I haven't been watching a lot of stuff lately because I've just, things have been
Life
weird.
Comes up. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, those kind of things I love. I've been doing some documentaries, not as many documentaries as I probably could for educational purposes. I try mostly I try and watch stuff that when my kids are around, they're thinking, oh, dad's just boring and wholesome, so trying to be a good influence so that they might learn something while I'm watching it. But yeah, I loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when it was on. I'm thinking of rewatching that. But seriously, unless I pulled up my Netflix account, I was like, what am I watching?
Well, that's
The Great on Amazon Prime, I think, or Hulu. I think it's on Hulu. Sorry, I'm not in it, so it's not like I'm promoting it or anything. But I think that show's pretty friggin' awesome. That's the one I can think of right now that my wife and I have been kind of binging on.
nice.
I just checked out the Wheel of Time, and the channels that all these are on are just kind of a blur to me because it's all like
nowadays it's just so
but there's so much great content to choose from. It's hard to even it's hard to keep up.
Oh, it definitely is. And it's one of those things nowadays. I feel like in this binge culture that we're in, it's just you have just one show after another. And sometimes you can go through it in a weekend, but then there's times where it's just way too much and you want to sit back and digest it in your own time. So I'm glad that there's shows that are still keeping your interest, because I know right now with TV shows, it's a big medium and it continues to just evolve and evolve and evolve. As we wrap up with the great Charles Baker, it is now time for a segment I call the final act. Charles, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions about your likes and your dislikes. But here's the catch. We're going to give you 1 minute to try to get through them all. You up for it?
Okay.
Movies or TV shows?
Movies.
Theater or watch at home?
Watch at home.
Favorite movie?
Princess Bride.
Favorite TV show?
Oh, Breaking Bad.
Walked into that one. Favorite trilogy?
Oh, God, trilogy. I can't remember one. Just ended up finally sticking to be trilogies. I'm gonna go with Matrix, but it's not a trilogy.
Summer or fall?
Summer.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
If you like it that way.
Favorite Breaking Bad episode?
Ooh, finale.
Favorite Breaking Bad character not named Skinny Pete?
Ooh, Marie.
And lastly, describe Breaking Bad in one word.
Incredible.
Bam. Got through all the questions, and I love the honesty and the candidness on all that, Charles. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And thank you for your contributions to the creative arts. Breaking Bad is one of my all-time favorite shows, and you play a big part in creating the love that I have for that show. I truly wish you all the best, and I look forward to having you back on the show to discuss your next project.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, Talal.